deep in the frozen wilderness of the Ural Mountains in the Soviet Union, a place where the wind screams through endless snow, and the temperature can fall far below zero. It was here that 9 experienced hikers began a journey that would become one of the most chilling mysteries in history. They were young, they were skilled, and they believed they were prepared for anything. But something happened that night in the mountains, something so terrifying that even today, no one knows the truth. The leader of the expedition was a 23-year-old engineering student named Igor Dyatlov. He and 8 other hikers planned a difficult ski trek across the Ural Mountains. Their destination was a remote peak called Ural Mountain. The journey began in late January 1959. The group traveled by train, then by truck, and finally on skis through deep forests and frozen valleys. They kept journals, they took photographs, and they laughed together as they pushed deeper into the wild. At first, everything seemed normal, but the mountains were unforgiving. Snowstorms grew stronger. The wind howled across the slopes. Still, the hikers continued forward. On February 1st, 1959, the group decided to set up camp on the side of a cold, windy mountain slope. That place would later become known as Dyatlov Pass. They pitched their tent on the open hillside. Inside the tent, they shared food, talked, and prepared to sleep. Outside, the temperature dropped dangerously low. The wind shook the canvas of the tent. Snow blew across the mountain in waves. And sometime during that night, something went terribly wrong. The hikers were expected to send a message when they returned to civilization. But the message never came. Days passed, then weeks. Families began to worry. Finally, rescue teams were sent into the mountains to search for the missing hikers. What they discovered would shock everyone involved. Rescuers eventually found the campsite. The tent was still standing, partially buried in snow. But something about it was very wrong. The tent had been cut open from the inside. It looked as if the hikers had panicked, slashing their way out in desperation. Even stranger, footprints led away from the tent. Barefoot footprints, some in socks, some with only one shoe. The tracks led down the slope into the forest. But the temperature that night was nearly -30 degrees Celsius. Why would experienced hikers leave their shelter in the middle of the night without proper clothing? What frightened them so badly? About a mile away, under a tall pine tree, rescuers found the first 2 bodies. They were wearing only underwear. Their hands were badly burned. Investigators believed they had tried to start a fire, perhaps in a desperate attempt to stay alive. Nearby, broken branches were found high in the tree, as if someone had climbed it, trying to see something in the distance. But what were they looking at? And what had driven them out of their tent in the first place? As the search continued, more bodies were found. 3 hikers were discovered between the tree and the campsite. It appeared they had tried to return to the tent, but the freezing cold stopped them before they could make it. Months later, when the snow melted, the final 4 hikers were discovered in a nearby ravine. Their injuries were horrifying. One had a crushed skull. Another had broken ribs so severe they looked like injuries from a car crash. And yet, there were almost no external wounds, as if some immense force had crushed them from the inside. Even stranger, one of the victims was missing her tongue. To this day, investigators still debate how that happened. Over the years, many theories have tried to explain the mystery. Some scientists believe a sudden avalanche forced the hikers to flee their tent. Others suspect secret Soviet military experiments in the area. There were also reports from nearby villages of strange orange lights in the sky that night, which led some to believe perhaps something unknown was involved, something not of this world. But no theory has ever explained every detail. Today, The mountain pass where the hikers died carries a haunting name, Dyatlov Pass, a silent place of snow and wind, a place where 9 young explorers met an unknown fate. And more than 60 years later, the question still remains. What really happened on that cold night in February 1959? Was it nature, a secret experiment, or something far more terrifying, hidden forever in the frozen mountains?